Hello there. Let's talk about tech stacks for 2025. And one thing that I wanted to mention before this video starts is that one thing that I learned after playing around with Elixir and Phoenix is that it's okay to know many technologies at the same time and use them on different contexts. So, the Daniel from last year, I loved going all in on one technology. So, I was either all in on JavaScript and using Node and Next.js for everything, or I was all in on Elixir and I would use Phoenix for every single app that I created. And this is not the correct approach. The thing is, I'm a web developer. I have many tools in my toolbox, and now I am no longer just a JavaScript developer. I feel comfortable working with Next.js, Remix, React Router, but now I also feel comfortable working with Elixir and Phoenix. And these two technologies, they can be used for completely different types of applications. And this is what I'm going to do on this video. I'm going to show you where I plan to use which type of technology, okay? And another disclaimer is that I'm using Next.js here, but you can easily replace it with React Router v7 or Remix. And especially with the v7 of React Router, these three frameworks, in terms of features, they're all the same, okay? Now, sure, the implementation is different, especially when it comes to data fetching. It's very different how you data fetch on Next.js and on React Router. But in terms of features like static site generation, server side rendering, client side rendering, you have all of these three strategies on all of these three frameworks. So I'm gonna use Next.js here, but you can easily replace it by another React framework, okay? And when I say Phoenix, I mean Elixir and Phoenix. Okay, so for front-end heavy applications, what do I plan to use? I plan to use probably Next.js, okay? And if I know that I'm not going to use many resource intensive tasks on my application, I would probably host on Vercel, okay? I am a I like criticizing Vercel a lot, but it's just the truth that the platform is amazing. Like you can quickly integrate with Git and GitHub, and you can deploy in like a couple of seconds. All you need to do is integrate GitHub with Vercel. So the platform is amazing, but it is extremely expensive. So for example, let's assume that your front-end heavy application has thousands of images. Then I would highly advise you not to use the image component from Next.js, because this way you're going to host the images on the Vercel CDN, which is extremely expensive. So depending on the type of resource that you're planning to use, I highly recommend replacing Vercel with Fly.io. So another thing is if you want to use a Postgres database, on Vercel, you can use the built-in Postgres service. I think it's from the Neon database. And you can use that, sure, the integration will be amazing. You can see all your database data inside Vercel, which is amazing, but it's very expensive. So it depends on which type of resource do you plan to use and how much will you use it. Because if you use too much of one specific feature from Next.js, then Vercel might be very expensive. Now, one example of a very good use case for this Vercel is my personal website. If you open my website, bergdaniel.com.br, I have my homepage, which is completely static. I have the links, which is static. Here I have the blog page, which queries the dev2 API. And here I have my courses page, which queries the YouTube API. I even have the code base open if you want to check it out. So I have the blog page, and I have a fetch request for the dev2 API here. And then on the courses page, I have a get courses function, which calls the YouTube API. Okay? And I'm using incremental static revalidation to rebuild this page every single day. And on my blog post, Yeah, okay, it's also every single day. So once per day, I am running this function again and regenerating that page. And yeah, I think this website is front-end heavy, and I'm not doing anything on the database. I'm not doing anything heavy on the backend side. I'm just calling a fetch, okay? So if I ever get a Vercel bill, I hope it's not a big Vercel bill. So, okay, what about backend heavy applications? If I have an application that I know that, for example, I need built-in authentication, I need background jobs, or I'm planning to use a bunch of tables on my database, then I would happily use Elixir plus Phoenix, and I would deploy on fly.io. Okay. And as one example, I need to build a REST API for a side project that I'm working on. And initially, I was gonna use vanilla Node.js. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna build everything from scratch. I'm going to use Prisma ORM. I'm going to use Lucia Auth on the backend. But then I was like, well, if I just use Phoenix, I can run mix.gen.auth, and that is going to generate the authentication for me. And not only that, but the ORM is built in on Phoenix. I don't need to install Prisma if I'm running Phoenix. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna use Phoenix, right? It's the best alternative here. I feel too lazy to implement authentication and add an ORM by hand. These types of features, I would gladly use a framework that gives them for free to me. So backend heavy, I'm gonna use this combo. Now what about both? What if I have a very complex front end? I might need a UI library like ShedCN, which is only available for React, but my backend is also complex. Maybe I have some heavy data processing happening on the backend. Well, what would I use here? I think I would use a combination of a Phoenix REST API deployed on fly.io. So here it's not full stack Phoenix. Here it's REST API Phoenix. Okay. And then I have next.js, which is front end only. Okay. I know next.js is a full stack framework and you can connect to the database, but whatever. Here I would use Phoenix for the backend, and then front end next.js. And maybe, just maybe, I would deploy next.js on Vercel. Maybe. But it depends. Like, if all I'm doing on next.js is doing a fetch call to the backend, then I think it's reasonable to deploy on Vercel, because if all you're doing is a fetch call, I mean, it should be cheap to host on Vercel, okay? You're calling less, a smaller function, a smaller number of Lambda functions. You're spinning up your backend less and less because you're doing just a fetch call. And I think it's okay, right? Now, if you are afraid of having a big bill, a big serverless bill at the end of the day, then yeah, I would gladly remove Vercel from the equation and also host Fly Next.js on fly.io, okay? And this is just one alternative. Another thing that you could do is you can use like React Router on single page app mode, SPA mode. So this way, instead of having a REST API and then having to consume that on the front end, I can grab whoops, and then I'm going to have full stack Phoenix coupled with React Router single page app. And since I have a single page app, and at the end of the build, I don't have a server running on the React Router side, I can host the single page app inside Phoenix. Okay? I can say, for example, that I have my slash API routes on Phoenix, but on every route that does not start with slash API, I'm going to redirect to this build folder that React router generated. So this way, like, you still end up with the REST API in the middle, but now you only have one deployment platform and your backend is serving the front end. Okay? This way you can save up, instead of having to scale an Elixir backend plus a Node front end, instead of having two servers, you have one. So this simplifies a lot. Now, sure, you can even remove the REST API in the middle. I can keep using fly.io, but now, watch, I can just use Phoenix plus React router or just vanilla React plus inertia. Okay, there is a very cool technology that the PHP folks created called inertia.js, and it's a way of creating a modern monolith without the need to have a REST API in the middle. And this is just one suggestion. I have never worked with inertia before, and this is my tech stack for 2025. So for me, I would not do that. To be honest, I feel a little bit lazy to learn inertia. It looks cool, but I don't know. I'm already wasting every single minute of my life trying to learn next.js 15. So if I have to learn another JavaScript framework, I'm gonna go crazy. Okay? This is my suggestion, but whenever possible, I try to stick with Phoenix, a full stack Phoenix. In Phoenix, we have a built-in front-end framework called LiveView, so you can easily use full stack Phoenix without React, without Next.js, okay? So this is my tech stack for 2025. This is the technology that I know. Maybe next year I'll learn a new framework, a new language. Like, I don't know, maybe I learn Golang, and then I'm going to add Golang on this list for my tech stack for 2026. But for now, this is all I know. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.